So what is the recording solution provided by Vidyo? So for recording your video conferences in Vidyo.io, we provide something called the Media Bridge. Media Bridge provides a couple of functionality apart from just recording. You can obviously record your conferences, but you can also create a stream where you can broadcast your conference to a larger audience who are not actively participating in the call, but they just want to see it. So you can use RTMP streaming to connect to servers like YouTube or browser, and you have streaming. A lot of people, it's sort of a one-to-many scenario, right? So you can do that with Media Bridge. Or else you can also connect to a SIP server. So you can have inbound SIP calls into your call or outbound SIP connections. To achieve that, you can again use our Media Bridge solution. The way Media Bridge works with Vidyo.io is it is a Docker container. So for folks who are not familiar with Docker, Docker is basically it's a tool. It's a software tool which makes it easier for the developer to create, deploy, and run applications on Linux applications on different systems, and it guarantees that it will run on the same configuration and it will run seamlessly. What a container is basically it's a packaging tool. So it allows the developer to package their application, their environment, their whatever libraries are required for that application to run, package it all together, and it will guarantee that on any Linux machine, this will get deployed and run with the same environment, so that it won't be we won't run into scenarios where, hey, it ran over here but didn't run over there. So Docker really helps out with that. One other feature with that Docker provides is that compared to a virtual machine, it's much lighter, much leaner. It doesn't abstract the physical hardware per se, but it actually abstracts the app layer. So if you're running multiple containers, it all runs on the same operating system kernel. So that way, it's much lightweight compared to running a VM. It's also secure because each application has its own container and they don't interact. So each application it's doing its own thing. And right now, Docker is very popular. So you can deploy it in a lot of servers. All the cloud solutions like AWS, Azure, Heroku, wherever you want, you can deploy your solution, and everybody provides a seamless way to integrate the container or install it, and you have a global presence of your service, which means when you deploy our Media Bridge on Docker, you'll have it running across the globe, no problem at all. So just to kind of summarize, how does a solution look with Media Bridge? So what's going to happen is, say in your typical video call, you'll have a conference going on, as this diagram depicts, maybe 2 or more participants, right? So each endpoint will integrate with the Vidyo.io client and SDK. You make a connection, you say connect to this call, it connects to our video cloud, and you're in a video conferencing. So now if you want to record this call, you'll have we'll give you the Docker solution, our Media Bridge, which is basically a Docker image, right? So we'll give you this image, you install it on your server, you put it up on your cloud solution, wherever. And then we'll show you how to do it. But once you have that running and you connect to the call, you can do a bunch of things with it. One, you can say, hey, I'm interested in recording this conference, so I'm going to set my Media Bridge to record. And you say, hey, record it in this file over here, and it goes ahead and it connects to the meeting and it'll start recording the meeting. If you want to do something else, say if you want to stream it, then you can configure the image saying it's a simple file where you just configure and say, instead of save it in a destination, you say, hey, send it to this URL. And then you will stream the meeting to that particular call. Similarly with SIP, you give the SIP inbound and outbound parameters, and you can connect to a SIP call as well. Keep in mind that each container will do one thing at a time. So if you want to record and you want to stream, then you'll basically run 2 containers. One will be recording and the other will be streaming. So let's look at how we actually get this done, how to set up this Media Bridge, right? So first thing you'll need to set this up, since it's a Docker container, you'll need to have Docker installed on your machine. You can go to the Docker website. There's a Get Docker page, which tells you exactly the different versions they have. There's a free consumer edition, there's enterprise editions, whatever works right for your system, for your solution, you can go ahead and install that. besides going to Docker website, you can also say you're deploying Docker on the Amazon cloud, or you're going to do it on Azure. Each of these companies actually have their own Docker page where it will tell you exactly how to do it. Even through command line, you can connect to it and install Docker and get things running as well. So whatever your platform is, make sure that you can look at that platform per se to follow the installation instructions as well. Step 2, once you have Docker deployed, for example, I got it deployed on my Mac as well, because even though the Docker applications are, the container will run on a Linux system, Docker works really well with VMs as well. In fact, Docker has its own Docker for Mac application, which when I install it on my Mac, even on Windows, I can then run the Docker container locally on my Mac as well. So again, it doesn't matter, right? I have a Mac. Docker will create a VM. It will run it'll for Linux, and then it actually creates the container environment. You can run different containers, which will be exactly similar running in a Linux machine or your own machine. So you can go ahead and try that as well. And all of that information will be in the previous page that I show in the Docker store. So I'd encourage you to go look at that. Okay, once that's done, really it's a simple step. It's as simple as just download and install and you're good to go. So once that's done, make sure you have a Vidyo.io account, right? So you're connecting to a video machine, video conference, so you'll need a video account, which you probably already have. So if not, go ahead on Vidyo.io, say sign up, create an account, and you'll have your application going in no time. So once you've done all of that, assuming that you have a meeting to record to, so I'm assuming that you have different endpoints, like say a mobile or a desktop, or a web page which is connecting to a web call. If you don't want to do that and just try a record, you can also go to Vidyo.io and go to our demo page and say, hey, you can start the demo there, and you'll be in a video-based conference right away. So you can also go ahead and record that. So even that's fine. So step 3, what we'll do is, once we have decided where we want to install our media bridge, and we've installed Docker out there, we're going to go ahead and pull the media bridge image onto our machine. And to do that, it's very simple. Once your installation is done, you go to the command line. You can run docker pull and give our repository name. That's give our image name. That's video / media bridge. As soon as you do that, it's going to download the latest version of the media bridge image and copy it over on your machine. Once that's done, you have the image and you can start the container. Starting the container means you build the environment for the application. It'll run with that container. You can call docker run. The /d is basically saying, run it in the background. You can, otherwise it'll, take over your terminal. So it's running in daemon mode. You do /d, you give the name for your container. I'm just called it my media bridge. And then you tell it which image to use. So as simple as that. You say docker run, and your container will be up and running. Once that's done, what you have is an application running on that machine, which is ready to connect to a call and record it, right? Or stream or whatever. So how do you tell this application which meeting to record, which do you want to record it on a local file, or do you want to stream it? And if you want to record it on a local file, where do you record it? The way you communicate with this is simply through something called a config file. So it's a text-based file. We have samples put up on our documentation page. You can open up any text editor, create a file named config, no extension, and you can put in these parameters. So I'll just briefly go through all these parameters. So what it says, it's setting up your recording, right? You set up what height and width you want to record, what kind of resolution you want to record it at. Obviously, these will be the maximum frames per second. Depending on the network, you can even go down, but you set those parameters. By default, you can set up, it will tell which video codec and audio codec to use. These are the defaults. So if you don't even set this, it will take that anyways. And one important parameter you want to set is how long the call duration will last, which basically means is, hey, you don't want the Docker to run infinitely, right? You want to put a bound. The meeting that I'm going to record is max going to be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. So this value is in minutes. So as you can see over here, I've set it to 180. So that means that it will at a max run for 3 hours, and then it will stop on its own. even if the meeting is still running. And then another important part is should I record or should I stream or should I do a SIP connection? And that's determined by the destination field. Here I've set the destination field to record it locally within the container in a file called recording.flv. So it's a flash media file. You can store it out there. You give it the destination. Name it whatever you want. Here we just call it recording. You'll probably want to name it more unique to your particular conference. And then once that's done, you give it the connection info, right? Just like any other video connection, you have to tell it which room you want to connect, the resource ID. This will match the resource ID that you're trying to record. And so if I'm in a room, for example, if I run the demo on the Vidyo.io webpage, by default, it connects to a room called demo room. So if you want to record that, you would set the resource ID out here as demo room. Second, you need to give it a valid token. Just like when you're asking your endpoint to connect to a video conference room, you need to generate and give a valid token. You need to do the exact same thing over here. And I'll show you an example of doing that later on in this webinar. So I'll show you how I generated my token and set it in my config file as well. And the host, as always, is prod.vidyo.io. So once this is set, you have to copy this config file to where the container is running. And the path at which it has to lie is my media bridge is the container name that I just created earlier in step 3. And the path that I want to copy this config file is in opt/video. So ensure that you copy the config file out here. Now the container, our media bridge application, has everything it needs to connect to this call. And then when you want to start recording, you basically say connect. So again, the command that you want to run is docker execute /d again in the background, and you want to say connect. And that's once you do that, it'll connect to the room. We have a few other commands as well, which if you go to our website and then look at our documentation, we have commands where you can look at the status, you can look at, you can get some call statistics from your connection, etc. So I'd encourage you to look at our documentation for that. One important thing to note out here is once you connect to a call and there's, say, a recording going on, you don't have to call disconnect for it to stop recording. You can call a kill if you really want to stop recording it, but it will automatically stop once everybody leaves the room. So you don't have to worry about that. It'll stop on its own, and once it's done, it's going to copy over the recording in the path that you mentioned. So before I move on to that, so I had said in my config file that I'm going to save it over here. So once the meeting is done, this flash media file, FLV file, will be stored in that particular location, and you can copy that over back to your machine, put it up on your website. You can convert it to, say, MP4. I'll show you how to do that in my demo later on as well, or store it in S3 bucket, whatever you want to do. But keep in mind that it is in the container right now. So if you don't do anything and leave it there and you kill the container or you remove the container, you lose the file. So copy it over and store it where you plan to store all your files. So that was an example of how to record. The next thing you can also do, which I'll walk through today, is how to stream a particular meeting to a sort of a server like YouTube or Wowza streaming engine. The scenarios are typically on this is, say, if you're running a particular class that you have only a few interacting members and you have hundreds of people who want to watch it live. If the people are just watching it and they're not going to interact with it, you could do something where you could do some streaming. Know that the quality of that will then not be as great as the native video client on their machine, because a streaming solution, typically that YouTube or Wowza, they give they're good enough. So I'd encourage you to compare the qualities and see, depending on your scenario, what would work best for you, right? So if you really don't care about them interacting and they're just viewing it live, then of course go ahead and use these services. The way you do that is first, in our config file, we need to tell it, join this particular server. Instead of saying it record in this particular destination, we are going to say, give it a URL, and the media bridge will know that URL means that I'm going to stream it. How do I get this URL? I'm going to show you a YouTube example. So if you must have a YouTube account. If not, create a YouTube account, and then you can go to My Live Events page. And on that page, you can create a new event, which you can set it up to consume the RTMP packages or the stream that we're going to send from our media bridge. So go to My Live Events page. Then you click on Create New. It's right in the center over here. There's a Create Live Event button. Once you click on that, it will take you to a pop-up or a page where you can give some basic information, give it a name, ensure that you select the type of the event as custom, which is the second option in the bottom over there. Once you select that, you can go ahead and type in a description, etc. Say create event. Once you've created the event, another important part to remember is you have to set the stream key as reusable stream key instead of their standard stream key. So in their ingestion settings, they'll say, you can either send it through their own YouTube, you can send it to Facebook, through Facebook or whatever. But here what we're going to set it is, we're going to set an ingestion setting where we're going to tell it, we're going to get this stream with this bit rate, etc. So select in the main camera, you select reusable stream key. You give it a value for 1500 kbps to 4000 kbps. That will be typically 720p. That's going to come across from our media bridge. And then you can give it a name and you save the changes. And once that's done, you'll get the page where you'll actually see the stream name and the URL. So you'll have the URL, you'll have the stream name. You need these two to set it back in the config file. So once you get these two values, you're going to go back to your config file and say destination equals to the URL, which is here, and / the stream name. That way, the media bridge knows exactly where to send it across. Once that's done, your container is good to go. You can copy over the config file. Sorry, if you first copy over the config file to the container, and then it's good to go, and you run and you say connect. So once this is done and you can go back to your YouTube page, you'll see that it'll show a stream status of it's getting in the streams. Obviously, there should be a meeting running, right? There should be an active meeting for it to create a stream and send it. But assuming that you are in a meeting, the media bridge is sending the stream. You'll get it in your YouTube server. It'll give you a status. It'll tell you it's good to go. You can set preview. You can say launch it, and you can make it live or whatever. So that's how you set up streaming. Next, what I'm going to do is actually show through some of the samples of how I have deployed the media bridge back on my machine, and even on, say, if you wanted to create a simple web service. So you should be able to see the screen share. What I'm showing over here is a couple of things. One is a simple, right now you're seeing actually my web service, which uses the media bridge. Apart from that, I'm also going to show you a sample config file that I have generated before. Okay, so there you go. You can see the config file. This is the one I used to stream on YouTube, right? So what I did is on the destination field out here, I created my own stream page and I pointed it to that. So the token over here was created for demo purposes. I can create a token locally, but I'm sure what you're more interested in is, hey, when I deploy this on a server, how do I get this token? How do I get this resource ID set in the config file so I can start recording? That I have done by creating a simple web service. What I did is I downloaded the container for Media Bridge. And once you have the container, you can create a web service on top of that. And the way I did that is I installed WebP on it, and I created a simple Python web service. And in that web service, I defined my record method. Right. So I'll share this code with you as well after the webinar. You can take a look. So what this basically does is when the web service is set up and the record service is called, I take in the parameter of the room ID. So I'm going to say, hey, this will be URL of my web service. I'm going to say record, and I'm going to pass in a parameter, which is going to be the name of the conference I want to record, which corresponds to the resource ID. So once I give that, what I've done out here is I copy over, I first get the token. The way you create a token is there's a method over called get Vidyo.io token. This sample is available on our documentation page. If you go to tokens section, you can download sample token codes for Python, for Java, for C# and a couple of others. So whatever platform you're developing. So in my case, I created a simple Python web service. So I copied over the code right from there over here. Since this is going to be running in my server, I have copied over in my Python script directly. I think the better way to do it is set it secure. If you're using something like Amazon service or something, you can create environment variables and store it securely over there. So make sure that this over here is not directly accessible by a client and application, but it's more secure on your server. So what I did was so you use that to create a token. So when I say get Vidyo.io token, I'm going to create a token which is going to be valid for around 600 seconds. And once that's set, I use that token and I use the room ID that's passed in the web service call, and I copy it or write it in my config file. So I have a template config file which has everything except the token and the resource ID that I copied over here. The other thing I could have done is also create a unique file name, right? Right now it's going to copy over in the recording.flv. That's kind of my standard. But instead of doing that, I could also have created a unique name based on the resource ID and the time and something like that. So every time it creates a new file. So I could have copied that over as well. So I write it in my config file, and then I copy it over in the required destination. And once that's done, I run the connect command. That's pretty much it. So once the connect command is run, it has the right parameters already copied over to the right destination, and it'll start connecting to the required meeting. It's as simple as that. And on the client end, when I wanted to run this, what I ended up doing is I downloaded the sample, the web package sample from our packages web page on Vidyo.io. I added, when you download the package, you'll see, you basically see, let me show you. So it looks something like this, right? There'll be a JavaScript sample inside it, and there'll be the video connector sample, the HTML page, the JavaScript page, etc. And this typically, when you load it, it will show you how to connect, how to select a camera. There's a camera, microphone, mute button, etc. I added a new button called record. So it's called a record button. You can take a look at the sample. I'll show, and you can in the HTML page where it looks. Take a look at right here, just like the microphone button. I added a new button called record, and when the user clicks on it, I make the HTTP request, and I had deployed mine on Amazon, and I'll show you how later on how that's done as well. And I pass it the resource ID that I'm going to join. As simple as that, and it's going to start recording. So, so if I stop sharing this, I'll show you. Right. So when you actually click the record, when you join a call and the button shows in, I basically I send the record. I get the resource ID, which is which you'll get from when you join the button. So in the demo page, there is a field when you click and you join a call. By default, it selects as demo room. But you also have the option of entering your own resource ID in the menu on the left. So once you add that in, it'll be filled in the resource ID field. So this is the value I want to send across to my web service, which will be picked up at my Python script here, and you'll write over in my config file. So once that's done, it's going to join the call. Cool. So once that's done, you'll be able to create your own web service to join, add a simple method to record, and even you could do something more like stop recording, or you can add parameters like start streaming, in which case, instead of recording something, you create a config file which will start streaming, and you can initiate a stream as well. One of the few things that you need to remember while creating this media bridge, right? Keep in mind that the quality of the recording will depend on the quality of where you run your server. So if you're running your server on, say, if you want to get a 720p resolution HD quality video, you need to ensure that your server has at least 2.2 gigahertz of CPU and at least 2 GB of RAM. And this will be for an individual recording. If you're going to have your server run multiple containers with parallel recordings, then you need to add serially how much you need to configure. So if you're deploying this something on something like the Amazon or the Azure cloud, you'd want to scale your system, your containers, to have this requirement, and then depending on if there are multiple containers running, it will take care of actually launching multiple containers in different servers with this configuration. So keep that in mind. Second thing that you want to ensure is if you're debugging if something is going right or wrong, we have something called the log level. When you're deploying or testing your solution, I would encourage you to use debug or full, because that's a very verbose log level. It tells you exactly what's going on, where the connection could fail, succeeded, the parameters and all that. But once your server is set up, change the config file to set the log level to something like one or just error. Otherwise, it'll create a huge file, and you'll end up using a lot of space for no reason. And it also will slow things down a bit, right? So remember to change your log level to one or error. Also remember that when you're saving these files, ensure that you give a unique name. So for example, in my config file, I had sent it to recording.flv, but if you want to change that, if you're running serially in the same container, you're running one recording after the other, ensure that in between those recordings, you change the file name, otherwise you'll lose it.